An 11th hour witness coming forward causing a delay in the DOJ Inspector General's probe into alleged government surveillance abuse. Our legal eagle tonight is here with reaction. Former Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo. Mr. Yoo, great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
You know Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General. What do you make of this delay?
First, I think Michael Horowitz is a professional prosecutor. He has served under administration of both parties. I expect that he's taking his time because I think what he sees is what we see, that the Obama administration, the FBI, and the Justice Department misused FISA to try to surveil a major presidential campaign. The very purpose that FISA was passed was to prevent such a thing. The harder question, which is what Mr. Horowitz is probably working on, is whether this was an honest mistake, that people were duped by the Steele dossier and the terrible evidence, I think just fraudulent evidence that was brought to the Justice Department, or whether it's something worse, whether the intent behind the misuse of FISA was partisan, was to try to affect the election. I really hope that that's not the case, because that would be a disaster for the Justice Department.
Either way, you expect Horowitz to get to the bottom of whether DOJ and FBI officials crossed the line on whether Russians infiltrated the Trump campaign?
Yes, and I think that's why we want him to take his time to make sure he interviews all the witnesses, to go back and interview more if he finds like an 11th hour person coming forward, as Fox News is reporting, and then also to make sure that we don't give away any secrets or classified information when the report is eventually made public, which I hope it will be pretty soon.
Then there's former Vice President Joe Biden talking about Russia and election security. Take a listen to this and I will get you to react.
Look at what's happening with Putin. While Putin is trying to undo our elections, he is undoing elections in Europe. Look what's happened in Hungary. Look what's happened in Poland. Look what's happened in Moldova. Look what's happening. You think that would have happened on my watch or Barack's watch? You can't answer that, but I promise you it wouldn't have, and it didn't.
But didn't it?
You know, after watching the debate where Biden seemed to have a senior moment when he was getting beaten up by Kamala Harris, I think he's having more senior moments because he seems to have forgotten who was president and vice president in 2016 when Russia actually did interfere in our elections. If there's anything the Mueller report shows, is that in 2016, under their watch, the Russians tried to take advantage of the United States and try to interfere with our elections. The question is why. And the reason why, I'm afraid, is because after attack in the cyber field against the United States, the theft of the OPM database, the hacking of Sony, the theft of U.S. military secrets, I think countries like Russia and China thought they could get away with anything. There was never any kind of deterrence or retaliation by the Obama administration. So I'm afraid Joe Biden's already forgotten the things that just happened 2 years ago.
John Yoo, thank you so much for your time and analysis. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
There were multiple, systematic efforts to interfere in our election. And that allegation deserves the attention of every American.
Yeah, that's what Robert Mueller said. But the question now is, you know, when he said the, quote, central allegation of the Mueller report was right there. But tonight, the Real Clear Politics investigations team seriously questioning that statement by the former special counsel, writing that those findings are, quote, undercut by investigative shortcomings and conflicts of interest. Specifically, the fact that the Mueller team relied on a, quote, private contractor for the Democratic National Committee. So what could this mean for Robert Mueller, who 12 days from now will appear live before Congress and the American people testifying to explain his report? Here now live, John Sale. He is an assistant special prosecutor back from Watergate, now a private counsel down in Miami. John, good to have you tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with this Real Clear investigation. What does this tell us that a contractor for the DNC helped determine for Robert Mueller who was behind the hacking and all of that?
Well, I think that's called CrowdStrike, and it was a private vendor subsidized by the DNC. But Ed, the Mueller report is not, although in 2 volumes, is not like Moses coming down with the 2 tablets. It is not sacred. It is not. It's something that can be challenged. It's a one-sided document, like any prosecutor's report. And this investigation is showing the shortcomings, and I think the Mueller testimony will be an opportunity for the Congress to try to demonstrate the shortcomings and the bias in the report. I have a prediction. Excuse me. My prediction is they're going to be very frustrated. They're going to find that Mueller's not going to answer questions. He'll probably invoke a privilege that Eric Holder invoked called the deliberative process privilege. And I just don't think we're going to get any answers.
Well, in fact, when he had that news conference a couple months back, Robert Mueller, we played a clip from there on the way in. He specifically said, this is it. This is as far as I am going to go. Was that a signal to those very lawmakers, particularly the Democrats, who want to push him maybe into saying bad things about the president, that he's not going to go further than what he actually put into writing?
Well, it sounds like more than a signal. He explicitly said it. However, there's something else that he said which very few people are replaying in clips. He said even people who he charged who have not pled guilty are presumed innocent. That presumption of innocence should prevent him from talking about any third party because they're not there to respond when their reputations are at stake.
So would that include the president?
There's another reason.
Get to that reason in a minute,
Absolutely.
but would that include the president? People in his inner circle? They're not there at this hearing to defend themselves.
That's my point. That's why he should not talk about them. And in addition to that, the shortcomings of his investigation, he's not going to want to talk about publicly.
So let's go back to the crowdsourcing and CrowdStrike. Why in the world would Robert Mueller, a special counsel who, as I recall, had a special clearance, he could talk to anybody he wanted in the government, outside the government, they had all those many hundreds of subpoenas and all the rest, why would he rely on a contractor for the DNC, which obviously was also behind the anti-Trump dossier? Why would they be used as a key source here in determining what the Russians did?
Well, not only did they do the forensics, but they also provided redacted materials, which they decided what would be redacted. These are questions that just demonstrate his report has not been challenged. There's not been any cross-examination. The president supplied over 1 million documents. Let's take Don McGahn. They include certain things McGahn said, but McGahn was interviewed for 30 hours.
Right.
What about all the things that they did not include in the report?
Absolutely. Last question then. The Democrats, we know where they're going at this hearing with Mueller that's coming up in a few days. The Republicans, will they finally have a chance to basically cross-examine Mueller?
They're going to have that chance, but I don't think he's going to answer. And I just don't think that it's going to be a big disappointment. But I do think that the big bombshell is not going to come from Mueller. It's going to come eventually when the Attorney General and Durham complete their investigation.
That's the U.S. attorney from Connecticut that he brought in. Yeah.
That's right, who is a total straight shooter, has been appointed by various attorney generals to do investigations, and then we're going to get some answers. There's not going to be any privilege. It's going to be just some straight talk.
Well, we've been waiting for accountability on that. We'll see how it plays out in the days ahead. John Sale, we appreciate you coming in tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to our special Trump in Asia edition. Tucker Carlson tonight. We're standing right now on the North Korean border. Our interview with the president didn't simply focus on foreign policy or the decay of American cities, though you could fill hours of programming on those topics. The federal government is being increasingly open about its decades-long investigation of UFOs. They have spent millions of dollars, and officials admit now they've seen many things they don't understand. We decided to ask the president about it. Here was his semi-cryptic answer. Watch.
You gave an interview the other day in which you said you've been briefed on unidentified flying objects. Are they real?
Well, I don't want to really get into it too much, but personally, I tend to doubt it. I mean, you have people that swear by it, right? And pilots have come in and they said, and these are pilots that are not pilots that are into that particular world, but we have had people saying that they've seen things. I'm not a believer, but, you know, I guess anything's possible.
We spoke to a government official recently who said the U.S. government had wreckage from a UFO in a facility on an Air Force base. Are you familiar with that?
I haven't heard that, no. I haven't heard that. It has not been within government, has not been a big thing, but I've seen it. I've seen it on your show, but I've seen it. I don't assume it's correct, but, you know, I have an open mind, Tucker.
No, you do, Mr. President. Thank you for that.
Nowadays, you can believe anything, right?
True.
Nick Pope is a journalist. He once investigated UFO sightings for the British Ministry of Defense, and he joins us tonight. So, Nick, I thought that was an interesting answer. The president said he had been briefed, quote, I don't want to get into it, but he's skeptical that UFOs are real. What does that add up to, would you say?
Well, first of all, I think it's absolutely refreshing to get a straight answer from a president, a sitting president, on this without dodging the question, without making some humorous reference to a science fiction movie. So that was good to hear. I understand the skepticism. I think everyone that started off looking at this within government starts skeptical. But as you say, this reference to the briefing that he has is very interesting. And when he says he doesn't want to get into this, does that reflect just that he's personally not that interested, or maybe that he received some classified information that he's not able to share about all this?
We spoke to a credible, non-crazy U.S. government official who said categorically, flat out, the U.S. government has wreckage from a UFO. Didn't say it was extraterrestrial. It was an unidentified flying object, and the U.S. government has material from that aircraft, whatever it is. That's an amazing claim. How would the president not have heard that, assuming it's true?
Well, I think... Yeah, I think that's the big thing, assuming it's true. I mean, I would think that the president has probably asked the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, firstly, is there a threat here to the United States? And secondly, setting that question aside, what are we dealing with? I mean, is this our own tech? Is it Russia? Is it China? Or is it from somewhere further afield? I mean, he will have asked for all information held on this, and will be trying to figure out what to do. I mean, he has said himself, something feels a little bit different about all this, with the US Navy pilots and the radar operators now coming forward. So there is something different and important and big happening.
So what would you say, since you speak to a lot of people who are involved in this, not just in the professional UFO questioning world, which I think most of us have a right to be a little skeptical of, but of just, ordinary pilots and people going about their business in government who have intersected with these stories or seen these objects themselves. What is the majority view about what these are? Russian, Chinese, American, or something else?
Well, I'm not sure there is a majority view, and even within government, and I've been here myself with the British Ministry of Defence, there were conflicting opinions. I mean, look, if the president would like more research and more briefing, I'm certainly happy to help with that, and I could probably round up a couple of other former intelligence officials from within the US administration who've looked at this, and we could certainly, I'm sure, get some people who aren't afraid to think the unthinkable and ask those big what-if questions. But look, whatever happens with UFOs, this may happen on President Trump's watch. I mean, we may get, with the current radio telescopes, certainly with the next generation telescopes, we might get absolute confirmation that there's other civilizations out there, and therefore this might happen on President Trump's watch. He'll be the one who has to make the announcement, and what a historic announcement that would be. My fellow Americans, people of the world, we are not alone. So I'm glad to hear he's open-minded and thinking about this, because there has been an upsurge in these sightings, and who knows what the future will bring.
There's something terrifying about all that. But we're not in control, as you often point out. Nick Pope, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.